Hey everyone, it's George Couros, and welcome back to another episode of the Innovators Mindset Podcast. And this is actually the second episode I've recorded on this topic, but the first one I didn't actually record, so now I'm doing it all over again. Interestingly enough, I'm going to be talking about technology, which I don't really know how to use because I don't know how to press that red button that says record. So let's go again. And I know it doesn't matter to you because you don't know what I said, but I'm going to try my best. And I think this is one of the reasons I love doing this podcast because it's off the cuff. I use some notes to kind of just see what comes to my mind. So this might be totally different than what I just recorded, but I want to share something about artificial intelligence and also kind of what's happening with what we're seeing in schools, this backlash to technology, to being used in classrooms, and the connection of the two. And I've really been thinking about this statement that you have heard forever in education. If you've been in education for 3 minutes, you have heard the statements, right? And if you've been in here any amount of time, and it's like kind of an interesting statement because there's sometimes numbers put with it and nobody really knows, but it's something along the lines of this. We are preparing students for jobs that do not currently exist. And sometimes people will throw a number like, hey, 70% of the jobs that we are preparing students for don't exist in our world today. And I'm like, how do you know that? Where are you getting that from? Like, are you Nostradamus? Like, can you actually predict the future? Now, 100%, there's jobs that don't exist today that will exist in the future. And I think that's really important to kind of understand that you have to teach kids how to continuously learn and develop. Really important. But here's a little variation that I want to put on to this statement. And even though it's always been true, I think it's going to be way more true. It's going to be way more accurate, not just in the future, but it's already happening. And it's something like this. So the original, we are preparing students for jobs that do not currently exist. And just change this a little bit. We are not only preparing students for jobs that do not currently exist, but also a workplace where many jobs will no longer exist. And you are seeing this happen already. When I was doing some research on this is actually the same day I started writing about it. There's an article shared on November 24th, and it was that the title was "Entry-Level Jobs Vanish as AI Rises," and you're seeing basically this happen already. I have a good friend, and he used to do these videos, and he used to do subtitles, and I thought it was really awesome. It was no one was doing it at the time. And I asked him, how are you getting the subtitles done? He's like, oh, I actually send it to a service and they will do the subtitles for me. Cause it's going to take like an hour to do them and go through the process. And it's like just a nightmare. So I'd rather pay someone to do that. Now I get people reaching out to me all the time saying like, hey, we'd love to edit your videos. We'd love to take that off your plate, do this. And I'm thinking, are they actually doing it? They're not. I'm just going to pay them, but they're just going to get AI to do it because I know how it's being done. I just use AI to do captions on my videos right now. And it's kind of interesting because that was a job that did not existed, and no longer exists in a moment of time, right? It's like, hey, we got someone doing captions for videos. No, I don't need that. That's already gone. So even some of these jobs that just came out of nowhere, already gone. And so this is going to happen way more as this is, as the world is evolving. And in the article, it shared this. Employers are drawn to AI for its efficiency as a complete task in a fraction of the time it once took human teams. The shift poses a threat to the traditional career ladder, resulting in a shortage of trained candidates for senior and managerial roles in the years to come. Young professionals can counter these trends by acquiring practical AI skills even outside of technology sectors. Combining human strengths such as strategic thinking with AI proficiency may help early career workers remain competitive and adapt to evolving workplace demands. That is an interesting thing. Now, school is not just about working, but it is a part of it, right? Is how do you actually, and I don't think it's just working for other people. We have to teach kids how to create their own opportunities as well. And I wrote, when I was writing about this, I said, having the ability to learn no matter what comes our way, adapt and pivot. And God, do I hate that word pivot. Because I just connected with COVID. It's like PTSD, just mentioning it, is going to be crucial. The ability to learn no matter what comes our way is more crucial than ever. And I just want to give you another example that I was thinking about recently. many people don't actually know this, but Uber wasn't the first Uber. And what I say, like we use, even though there's Lyft, we still like, hey, are you going to grab an Uber? Uber is like Google, right? We don't say we're going to Yahoo stuff. We say we're going to Google stuff, even if we use some other search term or a search engine. And Uber like became Uber. And what a lot of people don't know is that rideshare services actually existed prior, but they struggled to get off the ground. And so why did Uber become Uber? And somebody shared this, and I don't know the accuracy, but it does make a lot of sense. Basically, that company came to fruition during the economic crisis. So it wasn't that it was such a brilliant idea. It's that it was a brilliant idea and timing. And I think both of those things matter, because I think it was about 2009, the economic crisis in the United States basically had a bunch of people losing their jobs, but it still had a car. And so immediately Uber had a fleet, right? Because it's like, why would you do that thing if you already have a job? And it's kind of weird, right? And it's like a little desperation at that time. So you have this fleet. And so it's interesting because if you think about artificial intelligence and the evolution of technology, there's so many people that depend, their livelihood is made on driving for Uber. And that's new, but that's going away. It's already going away. You're going to have self-driving cars. Things like Waymo exist, where a car is going to pick you up with nobody in it. And so a job that didn't exist, that all of a sudden existed, all of a sudden will no longer exist because it's going to be way cheaper, way easier to kind of do this. And so there's more of that happening in the world. And it's not just, technology things. It's all these other aspects of, how we do research, how we connect, all these different things that will have an impact on this. So that's why the ability to learn is so much more crucial. And understanding this technology is evolving at an exponential rate. One of the really interesting things, I had someone that I'm presenting for, I think it's coming up in February 2026. And they sent me a video because they want me to talk about artificial intelligence there, which I obviously do quite a bit. And they said, hey, I want you to reference, what this video and it was like some new opportunity with AI. And I said, and it was in September of 2025. I'm like, this probably won't even exist. Like, this is going to be meaningless in 5 months. And you're seeing this. There's so many different AI technologies that it's just moving at exponential rate. And there's some good at that and there's some bad at that, because talk about school overwhelm, right? If you're just constantly showing the new stuff's happening like every single day, every single second, and we're not necessarily focusing on the old stuff. And I'm like, hey, we really need to focus on depth. The ability to learn is more crucial than ever. And so understanding that, I do want to share a tweet that, and do we call it tweets anymore? Is it X post, whatever. Anyways, I saw it on Instagram, actually. It's funny, someone captured the tweet, the X post, and posted it on their social media. And I've seen it before, but it really kind of took me by surprise. And it was from Adam Grant. And Adam Grant, who's not an educator, he's a writer. And it basically, he's making a very big statement on education. And this is what he says. Totally. And I'm not going to get into, as I get older, I'm way more gray. I think we're just going to extremes in so many places of life that I think sometimes we just got to kind of figure out what the middle space is. But to me, this is like one side. This is like a one-sided solution. And Adam Grant, and I'll share this up here. I'm so bad at this pointing thing. Shares this. It's time to remove laptops from classrooms. And I'm just like wondering how he wrote this. Like, did he write it from his phone or a computer? Interestingly enough, 24 experiments, students learn more and get better grades after taking notes by hand than typing. It's not just because they're less distracted. And it's interesting because there's like an M dash. I'm like, did you use ChatGPT? M dash is like, anytime you see an M dash, you're like, you use ChatGPT? Again, I'll go back. It's not just because they're less distracted. Writing enables deeper processing and more images. The pen is mightier than the keyboard. And I'll share the tweet and you can see his link to the research. And it wasn't just that he said this. There's so many people in education, get rid of laptops. It's so funny. Like, they're saying how we need to get rid of this technology, using the technology to comment. And I've said this forever. I really struggle with the idea, and I guess this is a very personal thing. I struggle with the idea that we should limit or ban stuff from our kids that I've directly benefited from. Like, there's no way I'd do the job that I do today if I didn't start tweeting from my school as a principal and people started being aware. All the stuff I've written over the years on my computer, on a blog, getting comments, feedback, I've benefited not only in depth of knowledge, but also opportunity. And so my big focus is how do you teach kids to leverage this too? Now, that being said, I think it's really important to understand that kids reading and writing is foundational. Numeracy is foundational. I want my kids to know their times tables inside out, as I do every child. One of my favorite things is like, oh, we don't need to teach spelling anymore because we got spelling tests. I'm like, yeah, but you got to be like, we got spell check. I'm like, yeah, but you have to be in the vicinity of the word. You can't just slap the keys, right? Like, you got to be somewhere close. And so as much as I understand some of the like, hey, we just got to be really good at school stuff, like, because that's kind of like learning and grades are not synonymous. I'll get to that in a second. Just actually, foundational skills are really important, but houses need foundations, but they're not a house on foundation alone, right? Like, it's the most important part, but what do you build on top of it? And so as we're talking about AI and all this stuff, how would you teach this in a classroom if you don't have access to, because phones are being banned. Now we're asking for laptops to be banned. And it's kind of an interesting thing. Like, how do you teach this stuff to your kids? Are we just hoping, is our strategy hope for the best? Like, hey, we'll teach these really foundational skills and we just hope kids will learn to navigate. And so when I was thinking about this, I think one of the questions I have, and I think it drives, what's the purpose of school? Is the purpose of school to be really good at school? Or is it to actually have that ability to learn that no matter what comes our way, we'll be able to figure it out? And whatever you predict in the future, you're going to be right, you're going to be wrong. Doesn't matter. The most important thing that you can put your money on is that if you want kids to be successful, you have to teach them. And honestly, you have to be the same way, that no matter what comes your way, we'll figure it out. That's the skill that's most needed. And so those foundational skills are crucial to it, but you also have to understand, how do we get to this point? So I do want to go back to something Grant said in the tweet. He said, students learn more and get better grades after taking notes. Students learning more and getting better grades, not necessarily synonymous. It doesn't, learning more and good grades does not, listen, no one would ever have bring me in to speak if you base it on my grades. The ability to learn and getting good grades aren't always synonymous. And you can see a lot of people have done poorly in school and they're amazing learners and have created tons of opportunities for themselves. Many times schools teach kids that are top academic students really just know how to play the game of school, where some of the smartest students in your schools are terrible academically. Do we recognize that? And do we try to find the strengths and build upon that? And so that's something I really thought was really kind of important. And I've shared this for a long time. I said, if you teach students to excel in tests, they may not become great learners, but if you teach them to be great learners, they'll more likely to be fine on any test. That's the most crucial thing. And so going back to the Grant quote, he shared this, and this is actually not new. The idea that taking notes by hand rather than typing. And in 2015, I wrote about this, and I wrote an article that was titled this, Taking Notes versus Taking a Picture of Notes, which wins? So it's not about writing on a computer versus writing. It's actually like if I write by hand versus taking a picture, right? So the research, undeniable, is that you will be able to retain information much better if you actually write the notes by hand. So there's the research, and whether, like, it doesn't matter if I agree with it or not, it's the research. The ability to retain information is better when you take notes. The question is the focus on simply retaining information or really understanding the information? And someone said this to me recently, and it's really pushed my thinking. Said, we live in an information age, but that doesn't mean we live in a wisdom age. Like, we have all the information, but do we know what to do with it? Do we actually really understand it? And so in the article, I wrote about how basically, if you were to take notes and retain the information, you could regurgitate it, you could get good grades, but it doesn't mean you really understand it. But if I actually just took a quick picture or a video or whatever, looked at the picture, and then wrote a blog post, made a video, do what I'm doing right now, making a podcast, having a conversation about it, does it actually help me better understand the information? If I have a better understanding of the information, won't I actually probably memorize it? Do you see what I'm saying? And I think that's really mattered. If I just remember the information, could just say the thing, it doesn't mean I understand it. And so it's like, imagine the amount, I think back in my classroom, writing notes and how long it took me. I couldn't read. And it's like weird because even writing notes, it wasn't like, oh, I'm becoming so smart through this process. It was just me scurrying to like copy what I saw. But if I could take a picture of it and I like had to like break it down. And this is a skill you have to teach kids, right? It doesn't mean they just intuitively take a picture and write a blog post and, create connections. That's a skill we have to teach. Grades does not equal learning. And that's something that matters. Like one of the things with Hattie's work that I think is really interesting because people reference it all the time. And I asked this question, the effect size, and we use this. How's that being measured? Is it like just looking at here's this thing and here's the grades you're getting? Like grades does not necessarily equal learning. So it's something I think about quite a bit. And again, foundational skills, crucial. I'm not arguing that. In fact, I argue for it, that kids have to have the ability to read and write. They should know basic numeracy skills. That is the foundation that we build stuff on. But how do we really, in a time constraint of the day, how do we actually go deeper into the information? And a quote that I love, and I've shared forever, is the world only cares about and pays off on what you can do with what you know, and it doesn't care how you learned it, from Thomas Friedman. This is the crux of the innovator's mindset. It's not just knowing the information, it's what you do with what you know. Going from, hey, we live in an information age, do we get to the point of wisdom? That's really crucial. So I just wanted to share that with you because I'm trying to kind of work these things out. We have this space where you're like, oh, we got to do all this AI stuff, AI. I'm like, whoa, slow down. Like, we got to really think about how we think deeply about this. And then you have this other space where it's like, get all this technology out of the classroom. And I think I'm seeing the extremes, and I'm thinking like, hey, we got to be somewhere in the middle of this. Like, hey, we need to really build these foundational skills. That's really important. But we also have to teach kids how to leverage these tools and have a deep understanding of any information that comes their way. If you choose one or the other, I think they're going to be an issue. But if you focus on both, I think there's some really compelling opportunities that will come our way because, like I said, there's going to be new jobs that exist, and there's going to be new jobs, or there's going to be old jobs that will no longer exist. And those old jobs might be a year old or less or more. And they're going to go away real quick. And I think that is something I'm thinking about a lot. Again, the extremes I'm seeing, I can't remember the school, but I see it on Instagram all the time. And even if I reference it, there's someone who's like this school that uses AI and AI tutors and whatever, and they use this and they're showing like, hey, look at the results of our kids. And I'm like, well, that's a lot of alone time. It's, those connection with, with people and stuff. Now they can say, here's the results, right? Again, is the result just great? Or are we actually teaching kids to learn? And I'm not saying that school's not doing it. And I'm not saying any school's not doing that, but we have to kind of find that middle space because yes, the foundational skills are so crucial to not only our students, but to ourselves, but how we build on that foundation in a time where things are changing quicker than we could have ever imagined. That's going to be the most important thing. There's a quote I once heard, I can't remember the source, but it was something along the lines of, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. And I always think about that, because I want to share these ideas because I'm thinking it through. I'm not pro anything other than pro kid. I really want to help our students not only be successful today, but in the world that they live in today and in the future. And if you want to do that, you have to be able to figure out whatever comes your way, as do we. So I just want to share that with you all. I don't know if that was as good as the one I recorded before, but I know there's some things I said that are different order, but even that's the resiliency we need, right? Instead of saying no, I'm like, we got to do it again because we expect the same from our kids. Anyways, thanks so much for being here. I hope you got some of this episode. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please share them in the comments down below. Thanks for all you do. Take care.